Morning, ladies and gentlemen. No pressure. I thought there'd be about 20 here today, but I didn't realise they'd slotted me in when the 1,000th delegate was going to be here, and there was a bottle of champagne, so everybody's turned up for that. So now, here I am, wondering what I'm going to say. No, what I want to do today is to look slightly at a different approach. And what I want is everybody in this room, and the basis of this talk is that you can change everything. And you have to change everything, because it's not going to be changed from the top down. It has to be changed from the bottom up. So the first part of this talk is to talk about a little bit about the human brain. Now, when you look at the human brain, or hopefully you don't look at it too often, else you'd be in trouble, the human brain has evolved over centuries, over millennia, into something extremely unique. It is the only instrument in the world that can think. Computers can't think. Computers can process very quickly, but they cannot think. If you look at the great genius Alan Turing, who was given a free pardon this year for what was done to him in the 50s, he was a genius of amazing. He was really a genius. And he invented the Turing test, which is that a machine has to pass it in order to prove it can think. Well, nobody's passed it yet. So we have this thing here. Now, what has evolved in the human brain is the cortex. And the cortex is this many-folded layer around it. The frontal lobe of the brain is the bit that is unique, in the sense that it's where we're creative, it's where we can solve problems, it's where we are innovative, it's where we have our working memory, it's where we can do things differently. Now, that is an incredible piece of machinery. We haven't invented anything like it yet. The brain itself is soft-wired in the main. That means it can do multiple tasks at multiple times, all 24 hours of the day. Yeah? So looking at how the brain works is an incredible exercise in understanding complexity, but complexity that works. So what have we done with this brain? Well, in the main, we've turned it off. In the main, we have shut down creativity, we've shut down the ability to think. Now, the ability to think has to be the prime mover. We've arrived where we are because a minority of people have been able to think and put that thought into action. But what we've managed to do in our education system, in our management structures, in our way of approaching management education, is to codify everything. So we have this love of hierarchy, we have this love of process, we have this love of silos, we have this love of putting everything in a box. And if you look at universities now and other big organisations, they're also trapped in what I call the quantitative matrix syndrome. Everything has to tick a box. Well, everything is not measurable. It's impossible to measure, well, it's not impossible, but it's not necessary to measure everything. What that quantitative matrix does is make us incredibly risk averse. It means that we don't take a lot of risks. Now, the only people who can actually change the game are people who are running businesses, and relatively small businesses, because they have the power. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people running small businesses, and we've looked at this before, why do people run a business? Why do you want to run your own business? Oh, of course, we can put money there, but when you look at some of the research done, particularly by the Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship, money in the first instance comes very low, right? It's about value, adding value. It's about recognition. It's about making a difference. It's about independence. These are the things that make people start businesses, and that's why I love people who run businesses. Now, one of the darker sides of running a business is it's about control as well. A lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of business people don't like to let go of control. They start to grow into this hierarchical structure as the business grows. So they start off with a little team, maybe 1, 2, 3, but as it grows, and if it grows, it becomes hierarchical. Now, that's maybe something to do with UK culture. The first big businesses in the UK were the railways in the 1830s. There was no model. So what they did was follow the only other big organisation that existed in the UK, which was the army. So from the very beginning of corporate life in the UK, it was hierarchical. You had everybody, and the railways in the old days had everybody in a very small box with a little uniform. And that spread into the rest. As corporate world developed in the UK, they looked at the railways and then they copied that. Then in America, 1911, you've got Principles of Scientific Management by Taylor, which codified again how to run big organisations. It works for a while. Everything works for a while. But what it did do is, again, shut down this idea that we can think. Now, if you've got 5 people in a business, or you're running a department in a professional business, or you've got 20 people in a business, or you've 50 people, that is the equivalent number of human brains. Now, you've got 50, I don't know how many people in the room today, maybe 100, I don't know. That's 100 human brains. Now, I would argue that all of the problems any of you have got with your businesses, we could solve today. We could solve today by getting into groups and brainstorming ideas to solve those problems. But we don't. Because one of the things we don't do in business practice is time to think. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I go to companies I work with a lot of companies that sort of have difficulties. And most of the time they're really good technicians at what they do. Their business skill sometimes isn't quite matching it, but when they learn a business skill, it's a business skill that's restrictive. So when I say you need to think, oh, no, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to think. Yet actually thinking is the only way to solve problems. So I've been trying to encourage people wherever I go to spend an hour or longer a week thinking. Thinking actively. What is it we need to do? What is happening? What are the trends? Where will our market change? Now, Peter Drucker, who is the only really business guru I've any time for, said every organisation should look at everything it does every 3 years, because it will be out of date if it's not careful. And that's happening, and it's happened in the UK. This is another problem with enterprise and entrepreneurship. Universities have turned it into a discipline. It's not an academic discipline. It's an applied subject, and it's based in creativity. It's based in thinking. It's being able to solve problems. But we can only do that if we broaden our own horizons. We have to decide that we will break these barriers. We will break these barriers of codification. If you look at UK PLC, yeah, we are a creative people. But when you think about how much more creative we could be, it's incredible. Oh, we're excited that there's going to be 2% growth. What? That's bonkers. If you look at the trends, it's been driven by consumer spending, not by export. I heard on the news coming here today, there's so many vacancies in the UK that can't be filled. Right, well, businesses can't just absolve themselves from the supply of labour and trained labour. They have to be involved at the bottom end. And one of the problems in the UK is there is not a match between the education and business, particularly in business schools and in schools. Now, I will be quite problematical in the sense that I don't think there's a business school in this country fit for purpose. And I've worked in them for 20 years. Not now, thank God. But what they've done is become very, very restrictive. So they're teaching yesterday's knowledge. They're turning out students without the ability to work with small and medium-sized businesses, which is where the vast majority of people will get jobs in the future. Right? So they're still turning out a corporate model. But they're turning out that corporate model that has information, but not knowledge. There's a difference between information and knowledge. We get washed over with information. But there's very little of that information turns into knowledge that we can use. So we need to rethink. And what I would argue is that companies, small companies, need to rethink how they operate. They need to be able to have time in their schedule to think and get their team involved. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 people, 1 person, 10 people. I did some work for Birmingham Airport. They were struggling. BA had just pulled out and they were having a problem. So I was at Warwick then, and they asked me if I could come and talk to them. And the outcome of that is they've set up an innovation room. Now that innovation room is a small room with whiteboards all the way around. And they have a guy who is in charge of that room, in the sense that he's there to talk to. And any member of the staff, wherever, can go in and write an idea. And that idea can then be discussed at the meetings they hold in lunchtimes or in the middle of the day sometimes to find out how they can improve the services of Birmingham Airport. And some of the things they're doing now there are quite different. You know, they're having plays on. You know, when you go into an airport, you're in a holding pen basically, like cattle. But what they're doing now is they're putting plays on. They're organising proper play areas for kids. They're thinking about doing education. And then that education, they're thinking of talking to the airlines about to put on the backs of the seats when you're doing long-term flying so you can switch in and carry it on if you want. They're thinking differently. And the way they're thinking differently is to engage their staff. And they engage the staff right down to the bottom level, if you want. And that's another problem. We talk about higher and lower. You know, I clean the toilets and I'm the MD. Turn it that way. You're all working for the same organisation. And you, whatever your level, are that organisation to a client or to anybody you meet. So let's get rid of this hierarchical thinking. Let's turn it round. Now, one of the problems with education, if you look at the Institute of Education did this research about 20 bloody years ago, which said that children at 5, right, they took a class of children of 5, 20 odd or 30 odd, their creativity levels were up here. They did a longitudinal study. By the time they were 12, it had dropped from 80% creativity to 50% creativity. By the time they went to university, it had dropped to 10. That's great, isn't it? So we've took this amazing ability to be creative and to think and to come up with new ideas, and we've reduced it. Like, you know, like a chef reducing a big sauce down to nothing. If you look at the history of UK industry, basically from the start of the Industrial Revolution, 1750s, 1760s, water power, going through to steam, etc., we've never had a growth rate much more than 3, even when we were the workshop of the world. We've always had short-termism. We've got a very extractive system where a lot of profit is taken out very quickly and not enough is invested in research and development. We look at plans for a year. Well, plans are rubbish. Eisenhower said before he invaded planning D-Day, plans are rubbish, planning is essential. Now, what is the difference there? It means flexibility. Because if you make a plan, and I've worked with companies who say, but this is our plan for 3 years. Yeah, but it's 3 years old and it doesn't work anymore. Or you've got people well, we're following this plan, but what plan is that? So they're locked into a thinking method. Whereas planning allows you to be flexible. Planning allows you to see what's coming, see what's happening. You can read the papers, you've got the internet. The internet has changed the world. The internet has changed the business world. It will change the business world even more. But you have all this information at your fingertips now. So there are no excuses for people running businesses not to be able to change practice. It's not going to happen from education. We're going backwards in education in this country. In the 1944 Education Act said there would be a tripos. Grammar schools for academic, technical colleges and vocational colleges. Right? We made a fist of grammar schools, there was some technical and the vocational never happened. Now that is what the Germans have. They have a tripos. And you can move from one to another. You can start off here and then you can change there. You can start off here and change there. We haven't got that. We have this short-term view. So it's not going to change. We're going back to a sort of a 1950s view of what education should be about, and it was never right then. Certainly not right for the next 20 years. Universities are so risk-averse now. They will not make decisions. So we're not going to get it from university business schools. We're not going to get it from government. So where's it going to come from? It's going to come from you. And it's going to come from all the small and medium businesses, the SMEs, which are the backbone of this country anyway. Yes, and there are professionals who need to join in this because they're working with companies. So it's not something that professions can keep out of. I did a lot of work with one of the bigger accountants in Oxford a couple of years ago, and we got somewhere with changing practice. Not where I would like to go with them, because I think they have to change fundamentally. But we made some practice, and some of that is still going on. But you have to take charge. And I think this is one of the problems here as well. we tend to ask other people to do it, or believe government should do it. Well, what's government doing about that? When I go home and I slip into the vernacular, people say to me, "Hey, Rog, what's government doing about that?" I said, "Hey, I don't know, lad." But I try not to speak with the vernacular now, but it's very useful. So the point is, we have to take charge. And the only way we take charge is by switching on this bit. Switching on this bit, right? Because we know from neuroscience, or the advances in neuroscience, that what turns somebody on to learning, what turns somebody on to wanting to take a risk, is the same part of the brain that is turned on when we're interested in a member of the opposite sex, or the same sex. Because it's about arousal. Now, it's arousal to learn. It's arousal to change. You have to motivate that part of the brain. You have to switch it on. Because if not, you end up with what is known as the believing brain. Michael Shermer, American, in the Institute of American Science, wrote this wonderful article which says if we don't think, we end up involved in bias. So we have group bias, right? Group bias, oh well, we're all accountants here, we're all small business owners, what do you think? I think this, well what do you think? I think that, okay, that's it then. That must be right. Group bias. We have authority bias. Oh, they're telling us what to do, we must believe that, that's right. So, they're the gurus. I was listening to Newsnight the other night, and there was these economists on, and this woman was saying, well, all recoveries are consumer-led. That doesn't make it right. Does not make it right that they're all... It means the model's quite wrong. She was arguing that the present recovery is led by consumer spending, which is to do, some of it to do with housing, etc., etc. Now, why she's doing that, I don't know. Instead of examining the problem, because we seem to shy away from examination and analysis. It's all soundbite stuff. So we have this group bias, we have this authority bias, we have confirmation bias. Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, oh, that's smart. Yeah, that's spot on, mate. Yeah, I'll do that. But we look for confirming knowledge, not knowledge that challenges. It doesn't make that knowledge right that challenges it. It's the simple process of challenging the knowledge that counts. So I may challenge Dave Beasley's knowledge. He may be dead right, and I may be wrong, which is often true with Dave. The point is, by challenging, you discuss. By challenging, you start to think. By challenging, you open up debate. Now, we have to do that. And it really is no good small businesses not engaging with this debate now. And I'm not just talking medium businesses, as I say, professions. We have to take a grip. And the methods are there for us to do that. So if you look at it, nothing is certain. We cannot predict the future. Now, loads of people have tried to predict the future. It's absolute rubbish. You can't predict the future. You can look at trends, you can examine trends, you can look at possible technological advances and how they may be applied. You can't predict anything. And for a business, trying to plan forward with a plan or with an idea is basically not possible. You need to work in what is known as unbounded or bounded chaos. So you allow for uncertainty. Because one of the other things we've done in our business world is to get rid of uncertainty. Oh, we mustn't do that, it could go wrong, we mustn't do that. But actually, uncertainty is actually bigger than certainty. The world is uncertain. Everything is uncertain. An asymmetrical world we live in is about uncertainty because everything's changing. So you need to take a grip of that. You need to say, well, okay, going forward, what are we going to do? How do we think forward? How do we use our brain power within our organisation to think about the future, as well as the present? Because we can't just think in 1 year. We have to think in 5 and 10 years. Because if we're going to compete, as UK PLC will call it that, then we have to increase the creativity. We have to get more people involved in creative thinking, innovation, in idea generation, not just a few. Now, we all have the ability. Some of it has a higher quota, some it's very low, but the people I'm interested in, those in the middle. Those who have this real ability with a little bit of the right coaching, etc., mentoring, whatever, you switch it on, you do the arousal bit. So there's people wanting to create ideas, wanting to be involved. Because people don't just work for money. People don't set up businesses just for money, but people don't just work for money. People work for the same reasons most people set up a business. Recognition, value, making a difference. Hang on a minute, isn't there something similar here? So then we put them together and it goes like that. So running a business and working with a team, and I know a lot of you do very well, this is not in any way to say that you don't do any of this. Please don't think that. What I'm saying is we have to radically change it again and pull the people we have into our network, if you like, people inside and outside the business. Spend time thinking forward, spend time creating ideas, give them the offer of having motivation in where the business is going. Because that is huge. That is massive. People really want to be involved with work. Now, you could go back and use Marx's theory of alienation. Marx was spot on. Actually, Marx's theory of alienation is that people do not feel engaged with the work they're doing. Basically, they're divorced from it. They're producing stuff, but they're not actually involved in it. Their identity is taken away. And we're in danger of that here. So involving people, getting them wanting to come to work, is so powerful for any company. It's the same with part-time workers. I did some research a while ago on how companies use short-time or part-time workers or short contract workers. And it was called employee lifetime value. And the interesting thing is, if we employ somebody part-time or for a short time, we don't think they're valuable. So all of these systems work to some degree. There were different answers to the same problem. That's the point I'm making. So don't think, so therefore we think we feed problems in, and an answer comes out at the apex of a triangle. So you feed the problem in, out comes an answer. But turn the triangle or the pyramid on its side, feed the problems in at the sharp end, and wait for a load of answers to come out at the base. So that you've got more than one answer to work with, and then you pick the best answer. It's the same with ideas. If you're going to brainstorm ideas, get 40 or 50. You want 40 or 50 ideas. And from then, you then get an idea that will work, or two ideas. But the important thing is, if one of your members of your team have come up with that, they have ownership. And when somebody has ownership, they want to see it work. They want to see it put into practice. They want to work like hell to make it a success. So we have this ability. We have this thing we can take charge. You have to allow time to think. You have to come up with a hierarchical sort of dustbin where you chuck all of the existing models in and you say, right, we're going to have a different way of working. We're going to have time to think. We're going to involve the staff. Because I'm just thinking about Jennings, really. I've been working with Jennings now for about 5, 6, 7 years, and the company has fundamentally changed. Now, I haven't said this to Paul or Chris or anybody. The company has fundamentally changed. We are now, and Mike's been a great driver of this, so has Paul, and so has the rest of the team. That's the point now. This company is fundamentally changing. It's one of the best business parks in Oxfordshire. It's one of the best business parks I've ever seen. The way it's run, the services it offers, the environment here is fantastic. It's conducive to a good atmosphere for work. My original role with Mike was to be a company doctor, to go around companies that were struggling. So they offer that service free. I go around to tenants. They don't have to pay anything for that. That's a great service for a business park to offer, especially when I make them go bankrupt, but that's another issue. But then we talk, where are we going? Where is this business park going? New build now is hugely expensive. We want to build more premises, but where else can we go? So we've looked at things like long-term energy production of our own, integrated energy, integrated communications, which would make the park self-sustaining. So maybe that's where we should put our future investment. So that it's integrated: lighting, heating, water, energy production, communication, so that we have a service we can sell to our clients, an integrated package that is cheaper than them buying it in bits from other people. We've looked at, and I'm really excited by this one, Jennings Virtual, which would be the creation of a virtual Jennings business park that can engage people anywhere in joining into a proper business park and getting the same environmental if you like, qualities that you get by being on the park. And technology will allow that to happen. It will. I'm thinking 5 years ahead, I'm thinking 10 years ahead. We're also looking at education here. Right, education is changing. If you look at the skills, there was an article in the paper today, it was coming again on the radio, there's lots of vacancies in the UK, as many vacancies as there was before the crash. There are no suitable candidates. That's really, I mean, that drives me to distraction. I mean, how can that happen? That we don't have young people with the right skills to bloody well fill these vacancies. That is appalling. Yeah? So we're struggling in the marketplace because we haven't got enough people, yet there's loads of people there. Because at school you're forced down only an academic funnel now. If you don't do GCSEs and A-levels and go to university, you're a failure. This is bonkers. I talked to a young boy the other week. He came to me, last year actually, I was running a new degree in Cambridge. He came to me, he said, I don't know why you're seeing me, I've got 3 Ds at A-level. Now 3 Ds at A-level is a pass, and it's a good pass. We're into this A-star culture, A culture. Honestly, it's really bad. Really bad. Because what you're doing is forcing kids to be process-driven. I've had kids come to me with A-stars across the board. You put them in a university environment. I asked them to think they can't do it because they've not been given the coach, the process. So this kid came, he had 3 Ds. He was running his own business. He was an inventor. He was 18. He said, I don't know why I'm here. I said, because I'm going to give you a place. And he started to cry. This is ridiculous. A kid with 3 A-levels at pass is crying because he didn't think he would get into university because he hadn't got good enough grades. You can't do that to people. You either have a pass or a fail if you're going to do that. You don't have a pass that fails you. That's not oxymoron. Oh, you've passed, but you haven't passed well enough. What? Now think about that in your driving test. Oh yeah, well, you can drive to the end of the drive, but you can't go further. Because you haven't passed well enough. This is ridiculous. This is seriously ridiculous. So we're wasting talent at that age, demotivating it, turning it off, and we wonder why we've got social problems. And never mind about the kids who aren't getting access to education, because there's no technical vocational route. So again, we have to pick that up. Again, we have to change that. And technology will allow us to do that. So one of the things we've looked at is Jennings education. Well, that sounds a bit grandiose. What do you mean? Well, again, we've got this room, we can offer, and and you are all in a network, we could pull you in to look at getting some kids in here who are 16, 17, 18, and looking at the skills that they need to become employable by small businesses. Now, they don't get it at school. I run a programme for the Swedish government, not for the British government, the bloody Swedish government. And I run a programme of what skills do people need to get jobs. You know, and everybody, if you go to schools or universities, a lot of them just, report writing, CV writing, interview skills, presentation skills, communication skills, technological skills, all put together in a package. So I do a lot of that for the Swedish government because they're trying to break the old social democratic model where everything was supplied by the state because it's no longer sustainable. So I've been doing a lot of work in Sweden, but not here. So the challenge is, how do we get involved? And I'm talking as a businessman now, not as an academic, because that's my roots and that's where I've gone back to. So we're looking at Jennings education, which would to do that, and we want people to be involved in that. Because there's nobody better to teach young people about business than people who are good at business, for goodness sake. I know lecturers in business schools haven't been in a business. They haven't actually seen a business for 20 years. So who's the best person to teach? It's the same with Oxford Business Mentoring, which is another sort of initiative that was led by Mike, and there's a group of us, Dave Beasley's here, and 2 or 3 other people, which is a free service to growing companies in Oxfordshire to mentor them. Doesn't cost anything. We get people who are successful at business to become mentors. Now, who is better at mentoring a business who's growing than a business person who's been successful? Yeah, you have to have empathy. Not everybody gets through it. There are certain qualities to mentoring, but it's still the principle. So, here's the challenge. Get involved, one. Yeah? And you can contact us, and we're happy to have you involved. And we're happy to have your input, because we don't know all the answers. You know, the other thing is, I don't know all the answers. I'm honest. A lot of people think they know the answers, or they'll stick to an answer, because, again, it's bias. But I honestly don't know all the answers, and a lot of what I've said in the last hour could be absolute crap. But it's about raising the issues. You see what I mean? So one, get involved. Two, go back to your organisation, create a group, and come up with a load of ideas for improving the performance of your business. Right? Get a small group, whoever your numbers are, get a group, brainstorm some ideas, get 2 of them, and then get the team to develop them. Yeah? That's the second challenge. Because then you will be surprised at how that changes perspective. And 3, think about an idea for long-term sustainability. Because if you want to be in business, you want to be in business for 5 and 10 and 20 years. Research shows that businesses only, and this is, I think it was the IOD, but I'm not sure, only supply economic and social capital when they've been in business for 5 years. So they only make a contribution after they've been in business for about 5 years. Huh? But before that, they're actually using resources, they're actually getting going, they don't actually make a contribution in a real sense, they're too busy getting going. But when they get to 5 years and growing, and we only have a very small Mittelstand in this country. We have a huge startup. We don't need to do any more for startup in one way. We need to support them better, but we've got, in finance or business skills. But we need to grow this middle ground because that's where is the bedrock. So we need help with that. So you need to have a long-term idea of where your business is going. Because in 5 years' time, your role in the business might change, so how are you going to replace your role? In 5 years' time, the market might change, so how are you going to change your role? In 10 years' time, everything could have changed, but you still want your business to be there. One final word, which is about leadership. Leadership is not about shouting. Leadership is not saying I've got the right way, follow me, you only listen to me. Leadership is about inclusion. Leadership is about motivation. Leadership is about sharing and getting people involved. The only way to win is to motivate people to follow you. Who said that? You. No, Lord Nelson. Lord Nelson said that before the Battle of Trafalgar. Right? The most innovative admiral we've ever had. I can't win a battle unless these guys understand what I'm doing and why I'm being different. When Montgomery, before the Battle of Alamein, told all the troops his battle plan, his people were appalled. So what are you doing? He said, if somebody's going to die for something I've come up with, they have a right to know what I'm trying to do. Include them in it. So you get odd little islands like that, and then people coming out, recodify everything into leadership that is dictatorial. And I've seen that in small businesses as much as I've seen it in big ones. So the challenge is, get involved with us, come up with ideas to improve your business, and to have a long-term view of where you're going. Thank you.